Good morning and welcome everyone to the People Strategy for the Future of Work virtual conference. We're really excited to have you here and we want to know where you're joining us from. If you're coming into the meeting, go ahead and drop in the chat where you're from and what coffee you're drinking this morning. If you have any questions during our session today, go ahead and drop those in the chat as well. You do not have to use the Q&A tool, so we'll just keep them all in one place. But I'm really excited to introduce to you Alex Bartholomaus. He is the president and CEO of People Stretch Solutions, a Washington, D.C. based management consulting firm. They specialize in revenue growth consulting and scaling organizations. Today, he is here to talk to us about unveiling the secrets of goals and OKRs, goal setting from basics to strategic mastery. Welcome, Alex.
All right, thank you. It's great to be here and excited to talk about a topic that I'm passionate about, OKRs. So today we're going to hit a bunch of things and we're going to try to pack as much as we can in our 45 minutes. We've had the pleasure of working with different size organizations ranging from, brand names like Colgate-Palmolive, SAP, and also, small startups. And we've learned a great deal about OKRs and we're excited to share. So let's start with, for those of you who might be not unclear on OKRs, OKRs stand for Objectives and Key Results. And the person on the screen, Andy Grove, gets credit for being the person who invented them. He came up with them in the 70s. He was the CEO of Intel. And the reason he came up with them is he just felt like his goal setting was lacking purpose. And by what he wanted was to set goals that got people excited, that got them out of their comfort zone. And so the objective was meant to capture the what and the why. And then the key results were meant to capture something that was aggressive and yet realistic. Now, that might seem like an oxymoron, but the goal was to really push people every quarter for them to reflect and how they could just push themselves a little further. Now, OKRs continued to grow in popularity thanks to a gentleman named John Doerr. He shares in his 2017 book, he is a famous investor who worked at Intel, but his future wasn't at Intel. It was investing in companies like Google, and he was responsible for teaching the Googlers about OKRs. And a famous OKR story at Google is back in 2008. Here's some audience participation for hopefully we've got a few people paying attention. So what was the leading browser back in 2008? Drop your answer in chat. Leading browser in 2008. Imagine Google Chrome wasn't around in 2008. And what they wanted to do was build the best browser. And they were competing against, okay, I see Yahoo, no, close. A lot of people in the Safari close, Microsoft Internet Explorer, yes, Meredith, you win. So Meredith was the 800-pound elephant, and they went after it. And they set a very ambitious objective in the first year, and they fell short. They set another ambitious objective in year two, fell short again. They continued to raise the goal, and they finally exceeded it. Now, one of the things, it's really easy to dismiss this as, oh, that's Google. That couldn't happen for us. But the important thing about goal setting and OKRs is making intentional decisions to focus on less. As we have companies of all ranges and sizes here today, in your growth journey, even if you're a nonprofit, every organization goes through a journey to evolve and hopefully evolve in a positive way. And in order to do that, you have to make critical choices about what to focus on and what to not focus on. So OKRs is bringing that ethos. How can we have a framework to help us get really focused? Now, you might be wondering, can we see some examples for OKRs? So here are 6 themes, OKR themes, that we normally see: growth, innovation, people, customer, excellence, and optimize. And generally, we teach people, for those of you who are doing OKRs, Oftentimes, people try to write the perfect OKR out of the gate. And what we try to teach people is to think about a theme, think about a base statement, and then write an objective. Now, when you take that approach, let's pick grow sales and profit to ensure stability and sustainability for our future. That's very high level, but that's the objective. What that would go with that objective is a key result: growing sales, maybe increasing profitability, maybe increasing margin, maybe increasing cost savings. All those things are things that the organization in one way, shape, or form can contribute. So when you set something at the top, it makes it, and you set it the right way, you can align it downward. And that's one of the biggest reasons why a lot of organizations like OKRs, it's the ability to connect the top and align it downward to the front line. Now, a lot of times people think, oh, tell, we love goal setting. Well, OKRs aren't just about setting a goal, it's a framework to live in across 13 weeks. And so when you see our 13-week framework, and it's the same for anyone, OKRs has 3 periods. It has planning, execution, and retrospective. Now, some of you might be wondering, wow, I can't take 2 weeks to plan. You're not taking 2 dedicated weeks to set your OKRs. You're taking 2 weeks. In addition to your day job, you're allocating 4 to 6 hours per week, and you're taking advantage of that time to really engage the team. And what you're trying to propagate is what you see on this screen. You're trying to set them at the top. You're trying to align them downward, and then you're trying to get feedback upward in that 2-week process. And that process is incredibly powerful as long as people are talking. We see a lot of people attempt to do OKRs, and they just do it in isolation. And when you do things in isolation, you just don't get the same effect as when you collaborate up and down and across. Looks like we have our first question. Yes, the presentation will be emailed to participants, Janice. So in the second part of OKR cycle is execution. One of the critical things in execution is being able to look at your OKRs every week. One of the biggest challenges with goals is that people set them and they forget them. And so the spirit of OKRs is looking at them weekly and engaging with your teams to have better conversations because you are looking at them weekly. And then last but not least, you have the retrospective. An OKR retrospective allows you to look back, celebrate the wins, and learn from the losses. And we're going to talk a little bit more about how to drive value. So as you're thinking about, okay, goal setting, how can we get more effective at goal setting and strategic mastery? We've been doing OKRs now for 8 years, and we've implemented it for over 90 companies. And what I'm about to share with you applies for any goal setting framework, not just OKRs. A big challenge that organizations have is that oftentimes they don't have the right inputs to go into their goals. So the quality of their strategic plan, the quality of their financial plan is not where it could or should be. And because it isn't, you're not getting the right inputs into your goals, and then ultimately your execution plan has holes as well. So whether you decide to do OKRs or not, you can take your execution to the next level if you really take a hard look at the quality of your strategic plan or financial plan and what goes into setting your goals. Now, if you're looking to collaborate differently across the leadership team and extended leadership, we use a framework where we have multiple workshops at the start of each quarter, and those multiple workshops allow the executive team or the CEO and his or her direct reports to get aligned, set the top level OKRs for the quarter, and then they start aligning it down to business units, departments. They might also align it down to cross-department, cross-functional projects, and that might also align down to individual teams. So the spirit is organizations have the ability to cascade, align down, but that doesn't happen naturally. Even a CEO can sit in front of the whole team and tell people to do this. But if you don't learn a framework and practice it every quarter, this does not happen naturally. And so this is an important part of an organization embracing a framework so they can really move their business or organization forward. A second part of these meetings is what you see, this leadership alignment. Now, we define leadership alignment in OKRs, that people get together and they actually agree on what those OKRs are going to be. They're just not talking about, yeah, this is the direction we have to go. They're getting very specific commitment on what the OKRs are with their boss. And then last but not least, teams need to get together and share what they're doing for the quarter on their OKRs. This OKR team share is a critical meeting because it allows everyone to have visibility of what everyone is doing. And if you're relying on your peers, you get to do a cross-functional tie-off. So let's say Jacqueline and I were on the same team, and at the OKR team share, if I'm in sales, I might need her help from marketing. And so I have to make sure that she's got my back for the OKRs for the quarter. A lot of times, especially for those of you out there in fast growth organizations, it's the lack of meetings, of helping create visibility and making sure that people are aligned, that create the growing pains that a lot of you are experiencing. And so by adopting a framework of having these ceremonies, these critical meetings, you can bring some relief to that fast pace culture and growth. Now, pencils down, and it's time to live in OKRs. So one of the best practices of goal setting is frequency of review. And as leaders, we saw this suffer in the pandemic. We saw goals getting reviewed less, people meeting less because they were just trying to get through that major transition. Now, since the pandemic, we've seen the frequency of one-to-ones and team meetings go from as infrequent as monthly to now organizations are finding a happy balance between weekly or bi-weekly. So that's a great opportunity to engage the team, engage your direct report in a one-on-one, and use the OKRs to have better conversations. And those better conversations are really going to drive their performance and their satisfaction. So leaders, we have a huge opportunity in order to help them to do better. I'm going to pause. Any questions so far on what we've been covering relative to OKR, setting them and living in them? Hey, Jacqueline, I see you back.
I'm back, yes.
Okay, great. Awesome. So while we wait for questions, let's talk about retrospectives. I think one of the things that organizations sometimes when they adopt OKRs, this is an area that they don't do. And if you want to get OKRs right and you want to get that quarter over quarter lift, you need to end the quarter and you have to acknowledge the wins. You have to get really clear on, what did we win and how did we win? And then also learn from the losses. So we have a question, Lisa. I see the business is pushing back on implementation given the time commitment entails. What's the change management for this? So generally, organizations have to suffer a little bit of pain in order to not push back on the time commitment. A lot of times, an organization, if everything's going great, an organization is going to invest incremental time to bring about change. But if the organization is growing, but having a lot of growing pains, or maybe the organization is growing and now it's flat, or maybe the organization is facing an existential threat, There needs to be a catalyst in order to get people to really take OKRs seriously. At least I agree, it's not easy and people will push back. But the important thing is, if people want to drive acceleration, if you're not growing fast enough, if you've been growing so fast, there's parts of your business not keeping up, if you're facing an existential threat to the business, these are major things that cannot bring about or change with incremental behavior. So you have to invest the time. And I appreciate it's probably a little easier for the practitioners that are here today. They get it. They're investing time just to join. And I think a lot of leaders need to have that catalyst event in order for them to be what's clear for me. Okay, how can we ensure alignment between OKRs of different areas such as sales and operations? Another great question. So if we go back to this slide, so a lot of times sales and ops are meeting here. The sales and ops leaders are meeting in this executive workshop, and there might be specific things that ops has concerns and says, hey, sales, you're killing it. We've got some concerns about meeting demand. Or maybe sales is overpromising and operations might be feeling the pain of those overpromises. So hopefully you have a platform every quarter where you can kind of frame the problem with this group. And then a lot of times it's going to take some cross-functional collaboration to resolve. So the leaders have to get aligned that report to the CEO. Then the leaders have to go to their teams to share what was discussed. And then you've got to get together cross-functionally to work through any kind of friction that there might be. So it's 3 touch points. It's getting together aligned with the senior leadership team, bringing that to drive alignment with the respective departments that need to get aligned. And then those departments actually have to get together in order to work through those. And in OKRs, that should be happening every quarter. One of the things, back to Lisa's point, there could be pushback as an organization grows and the need to collaborate cross-functionally increases. The willingness to engage in this meeting goes up. Once again, everything might be working great. So if everything's working great, it might not be time for OKRs. It might not be time for OKRs. So hopefully, anonymous attendee, I hope that was helpful. And so if we go back to key results, the retrospectives, and we're talking about key results, there's a topic that I'm sure we might get a lot of interest in, and a lot of people here today care about psychological safety. So retrospectives are actually a great litmus test if leaders are nurturing psychological safety. And what I mean by that is, in the retrospective, it's easy to celebrate a win. It's easy to celebrate a win. Now, if Jacqueline and I were on the same team, I'd be high-fiving, marketing killed it, created all these, sales qualified leads because they put on a great show today. And maybe if I was the sales leader, I might have overcommitted to my first quarter OKR in terms of revenue. In the retrospective, it would be important for me to understand what got in my way. Was it I was too overly ambitious? Maybe I thought I was going to make some critical sales hires and I didn't. And so if leaders are nurturing psychological safety, then I'm going to be more open and vulnerable when it comes time to learn from the losses. And a lot of times, because organizations don't even do this, the organization is missing an opportunity to not just learn from wins and losses, but to actually see if the organization is nurturing psychological safety. There's a direct correlation by the quality of retrospectives and the level of psychological safety. So something to think about. I know there's many practitioners today here that are very passionate about the topic, and I think I would encourage you all to explore, if you're thinking about doing this or doing this, think about that in terms of how to make it better. The other thing about OKRs that organizations can get a tremendous amount of value is when they start aligning OKRs with people development. And so we use a metaphor, and the metaphor is Maggie, the marketing manager. And Maggie, the marketing manager, works for a very wise CMO. And that wise CMO knows that in order for Maggie to be successful, Maggie needs to drive a certain amount of increased sales qualified leads, a certain amount of website traffic, a certain amount of sales qualified leads. So those are things that Maggie has to drive. Now, she might need some help in order to do all those things. And so by maybe developing her content writing skills, time management, learning to optimize, marketing automation, those are things that CMO knows. If I want to make Maggie successful, and if I want Maggie to hit her key results, I need to align her development to those key results. So question for everyone, is your organization doing a good job of aligning people development with business results? Because in OKRs, this is an important part of the journey, and we'd love to hear how your organization is doing relative to aligning. Doesn't matter if you do OKRs, but are you aligning people development with your business results? So important question, looking to get feedback from the group in order to have a more robust discussion on this. So while we're waiting for questions, I think OKRs and a lot of times goal setting frameworks focus on the goals. In OKRs, what's really critical is that OKRs is meant to drive collaboration. And in each of the periods of OKRs in planning, that collaboration is happening up and down the organization. So it is collaboration's happening at the leadership team, it's happening at the division, business unit, team level, and it's all happening down to sub-teams, frontline teams. Okay, Lisa, thank you. Our HR team is oddly more enthusiastic about tying L&D to OKRs than the business units. Lisa, tell me more about that. Would you be willing to unmute and share? This is a very interesting dynamic. Jacqueline, can we unmute Lisa?
I am trying to, but I don't see a way to do that.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
Lisa, what's their pushback on tying L&D to OKRs? I'd love to hear what the pushback is, other than it's more work. So think about that. So if we go back to thinking about, a lot of times goal setting doesn't always translate to execution. And the important learning lesson is that does your organization have the orthodoxy to collaborate the way they could or should? Okay, I see Lisa coming up. Great, we're getting there.
Hi there.
Hey.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I think a part of it is probably because the leadership team came in a few years ago at a higher level of experience than the business. The business was failing, and so we came in as a transformation. So there's probably that, and the HR team was brought on to kind of help that. But the business unit doesn't, so I'll have meetings with the business units with our HR team, and we'll say, okay, how do we get this learning and development tied and aligned to, to the results that you want to see? And they just sort of like kind of crickets, like they want us to tell them, and I'm not sure we're qualified to do that. So.
Okay. Well, so hold on, Lisa. I can we explore that just for a second? Because if you ask the right questions, you can they'll give you the answers that you're looking for. So to me, if you understand, so the questions that I kind of encourage people like you to ask are, so in the case of marketing's easy, but generally, whether it's finance, ops, sales, let's understand, hey, what's the most important result? They give you the result. Great. In your mind, what skill drives the result that you're looking for? Okay. Because oftentimes you just have to walk them through, hey, what skill has the biggest impact? Does this person need to get to a higher degree of mastery? So what does that look like? Can we provide that mastery, or do we need to provide that mastery outside the organization? I'll give you a perfect example. A couple days ago, I was talking to a new sales leader. This new sales leader had never managed sales before and had a sales development representative, the lowest level of sales in terms of all they're doing is setting appointments. So this person setting appointments, this new leader has never managed sales. Okay. So what you could come in and be like, well, what skill do they need in order to set more appointments? Well, they need to be able to have good scripting. They need to know how to handle objections, and then be like, great, can we provide that mastery and to that person so they can succeed? And this new leader would say, no, I can't. I'm new at this. I need help. So to me, the two questions are, what is the skill that impacts that result the most? And do we have the mastery to help that person, or do we need to go and get it? And I think a lot of times, L&D, wants to be a wonderful partner, and they, they want to help. So tell us what you want us to help you with. And then the business might be a little overwhelmed. They might not admit it. And so if you just ask those questions, you can guide them through questions to the answers, as opposed to you giving them the answers.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Very helpful.
Was that helpful? Okay, great.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, do I have any other volunteers in terms of, did we want to hit that? No worries. So any other, not a problem. So we've, we've gone to, so back to this point of collaboration. So let's just kind of do a summary of key takeaways to make sure. And as I talk, if you have follow-up questions. So to me, in the planning period, you need to really explore, are you spending enough time setting your goals? Are you spending? So you don't have to do OKRs. I hope that you'll do OKRs, but you don't have to. But just ask the question, are you spending enough time, and are the right people collaborating to set those goals? My experience is the answer is no. Okay, so there's an opportunity for everyone to bring something to the leadership team and saying, hey, there's a way to do this differently. Now, what's really critical, and I think this is more nuanced, by taking more time, OKRs gives you 2 weeks. It makes the process of developing buy-in for the quarterly goals a lot easier. So I got a question on change management. I think Lisa was the one that asked the question on change management. So by taking more time to develop buy-in, that's how you manage the change. So important part of what everyone here can be doing better in strategic planning, it's making sure more time, more collaboration, and really securing that commitment so you can execute your OKRs or your whatever goals you're doing. Now, when you're living in that world of execution, think about the frequency of review and the conversation you're having in one-on-ones versus team review. Because from my perspective, that really suffered in the pandemic, and leaders are just starting to find their stride again. So think about, how can you help your organization regardless of OKRs? How can you help them be more effective in one-to-ones and team meetings? Because I think a lot of people don't realize how much those skills suffered in the pandemic. And then last but not least, how can you, if you're not doing OKRs, how can you introduce an end of period review, a look back, a celebration? Because when you execute, you know, work hard across the quarter, and if you do this just once a year, at the end of the year, take time to look back, take time to celebrate, take time to learn. Because a lot of times people all of a sudden it's end of year, okay, let's think about next year, and they don't necessarily think about how'd we do this year? What were our wins? Why were we successful? Anything other people could be doing that we learned from the wins, and then about those losses. What was within our control? What will we do differently? I think one of the most powerful things as leaders, if we can help our team members make commitments to do things differently in the next period. And that's what's so powerful about retrospectives. We're there to celebrate, we're there to help people do better. And I guess everyone here believes in servant leadership. And so if you believe that, then the retrospective is a perfect platform for you to help your people be their best. So, Jacqueline, we've kind of gone through the content a little faster than expected. We've got a few minutes to engage in some Q&A, and it's possible we might be giving some time back to people depending on if we have any questions. But certainly the floor is open for Q&A. We will be making this deck available to everyone, but any questions from the crowd in terms of what we covered today on the OKRs, in terms of the planning phase, execution, retrospective, tips and tricks on how to improve your execution around goal setting. Have a couple of minutes in order to engage and certainly share more about how to align business results and personal development, and also how to execute each of these parts of OKRs.
As organizations are developing their OKRs, they start at the top level and it goes down to sub-departments. This methodology, is this something that I could apply to my own goals as well?
Yes, absolutely. So if we think about, and let's go to the very beginning. So when we think about setting personal goals, I think a lot of times people say what, but I think they're missing the why. So I think for personal goals, if we had that what and why and that inspiration, that would move us in the direction of why are we going to go to night school and get a master's degree? Why are we going to sign up and coach our kids' soccer team or sign up to do volunteer activity? There's reasons why, and the more that you can be explicit, I think that's really critical. Now, key results is very synonymous with SMART goals. And so I know a lot of people here probably believe in SMART goals. And so what SMART goals don't always have is that inspiration. SMART goals tend to be very pragmatic, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time bound. And so SMART goals help for incremental progress. If you want to do something exciting, I think OKRs can put that aspiration into your personal goals.
Thank you for that. That is helpful. I do like to use SMART goals and I use that within my own team. And it's hard for me to understand, what an individual might be thinking when we set up goals, because a lot of people might think goals mean performance. And if this is a performance metric, then I'm going to fail or I'm not going to reach this goal. And there could be some hesitancy around it. So I do like taking it to a personal level, showing them how it all connects throughout the organization.
Yeah, and so let's build on this because I think one of the interesting things that organizations have the opportunity as we're developing people, especially early in their career, they don't have the benefit of experience. And the orthodoxy of their job has them focused on doing their daily work, daily work. Um, Okay, can you give an example of a second level OKR? We use OKRs at a nonprofit, high level, but we have difficulty getting second level aligned their OKRs with the top level. So example would help. That's all. Okay, great. Awesome. Thank you, anonymous attendee. So let's talk about people because I think a people objective for an organization applies to everyone, federal government, nonprofit, private. And so if the organization talks about engage employees through learning and development, career opportunities, and an inclusive culture to drive employee engagement, that second level is then going to focus on a subset of that. Maybe there's no career opportunities in that next level, but there are learning and development opportunities. So at the second level, learning and development opportunities for fundraising might look different than membership, learning and development opportunities for someone in advocacy or maybe someone in just the operations of the nonprofit. So I think oftentimes it's how the OKRs are written at the top. The other thing about nonprofits and OKRs is a lot of times the nonprofit thinks about OKRs largely around the mission. And so I'm not sure this is applicable in your world. If you'd like to explore that, we've got a couple minutes. But because the nonprofit writes OKRs around the mission, because people's participation, sometimes, we're working with a community foundation in San Diego. They're an amazing foundation. Now, if you look at their strategic plan, it's very focused around community impact. Now, fundraising has to raise the money so they can then deploy it to do community impact. And then there's people in finance and accounting, IT, HR. All of them have to do their core functions, but the OKRs are about community impact, not about hiring people, nurturing people, paying the bills. So those things I think are really important, that there can be strategic initiatives for finance, for IT, for HR that could be OKRs that support the mission. But you have to kind of be open to exploring. And I call it, there's direct contribution and indirect contribution. So your organization might need to get comfortable with the concept of indirect contribution. And that's how people that maybe traditionally struggle to see their direct connection can make an indirect connection. Hopefully that was helpful for a second line example on OKRs. So what I didn't get a chance to finish, yes.
We do have another question in the chat.
Okay, great.
Are there any best practices on whether these initiatives are more successful when they are led by PMs or by direct managers? Does either tend to be easier for organizational buy-in?
So that's a great question. So it depends on the size of the organization. So organizations, as they grow, generally, the larger they grow, the less of this capacity that they have. And so ideally, of course, you want a PM leading the most important initiative. What really matters, though, is for an organization that can accomplish initiatives without PMs. PMs, I love you if you're out there. I'm not saying we don't want you. There's just generally never enough of you. And you only have enough hours in the day. So what organizations realize through OKRs and through retrospectives, this is actually a major learning and development opportunity for organizations. It's developing project management capabilities outside of maybe the traditional project management office, PMO. So to me, from an initiatives perspective, I think that organizations can adopt things like charters, things like using tools like Trello, Asana, having, check-ins on a weekly basis. There are some pretty straightforward, practices that can be adopted, but on more sizable initiatives, an organization that can do more than what their PMs are capable tends to drive some pretty amazing things. So hopefully that was helpful. But for the L&D people here, think about how you can bring project management skills to the entire org, because that's another way to really help people grow. Now, last thing before we start wrapping up is that back to this frontline specific SMART goal approach, which is great. You have to start somewhere. But if you recognize that someone is high potential, thinking of getting them to write an objective that's higher than their specific role is their journey in their career growth. It's really important to be able to, the people who are able to conceptualize, hey, what if I don't work for Jacqueline. What if I was in Jacqueline's position? What would I want the objective for the department to be? And so to me, as a manager, I think everyone here has a great opportunity, if you're managing frontline people, is to get them to try to conceptualize what the objective would be at the next level. And so these are some examples of higher level objectives that I'm not suggesting, once again, they're perfect, but the act of writing is a wonderful exchange of where someone is in their thinking and how you might help them in this journey. So hopefully that was helpful in order to build your people, because you don't have to do OKRs formally to take this approach and helping people think about how to be more effective at setting goals. Okay, Jacqueline, any more as we are wrapping up?
I think that's all the questions we have from the group today. Your presentation was very thorough and helpful. Thank you so much for your time and joining us today. Do you have any last words?
Yeah, last words. I forgot to drop in. Generally, we make a couple of offers. So once again, if you want a copy of our deck, how do they get a copy of the deck, or will that be sent out, Jacqueline?
Everybody who has registered for the event will receive an email with a copy of the recordings and the decks on a webpage for them to access. It will be email entry, so whatever email you signed up with, you use that to enter it. You'll see all of the videos and slides right there.
Awesome. And so if you download it, you see my email here. My offer is, if anyone's interested in taking our OKR Basics course, happy to let anyone who attended today take our OKR Basics course. Just drop me an email, let me know you attended the Engagedly OKR webinar, and we'll make it available to you at no charge. So we like to propagate the best practices around OKRs and goal setting. So that's our offer and gift to you. If you want to take us up on it, happy to share that with anyone who emails me from this deck.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. And with that, I'll go ahead and share the information for the next session. We are going to have another session at 9:30 a.m. Central, empowerment through technology, aligning talent and strategy with tools to enhance your employee experience. And remember, for every session that you attend today, you will be entered to win a Stanley mug, not cup, a Stanley mug from Engagedly in our Marissa Blue. So we'll talk to you. We'll see you at the next session. And thank you so much, Alex, for your time today.
Absolutely. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.